Welcome to the Baseball Insiders Prospect Show. I am Adam Weinrib, joined as I am every Tuesday at noon Eastern Time by Fansided's MLB staff writer prospect guru Eric Cole. And as we head towards the offseason, just a couple of days away now, so close, you can taste it. We wanted to compile a list. And again, we obviously stayed up until 3 a.m. last night. Unrelated reasons. Compiling a list is what we were doing until late at night. Wasn't watching Game 3. Don't know how it turned out. Probably very exciting. But we wanted to do a fun show before the offseason moves really get going to decide which three prospects, top names, are closest to Major League Ball with a clear path to the opening day roster. And that is, again, before teams start shuffling, before teams bring in veterans, before we really learn how teams feel about these prospects and their readiness. Because right now, clear path, open skies. But in a couple of months, these are the guys who, if they do get blocked by a veteran ad, you'll know, oh, okay, the consensus wasn't, so that was an accident. Eric's going to surprise me with his list. I will react live on the stream. I don't know the names he's going to bring up, and you don't either, but you will. Thank you for joining us. Noon Eastern and on all your favorite podcast platforms in the aftermath of the live show. Tomorrow afternoon, we'll be back on the Baseball Insiders channel with Robert Murray at 3 o'clock Eastern to talk World Series, of course, managerial shuffles, changes in the dugout, Antoine Richardson leaving the Mets in the lurch for some reason. Tomorrow's show at 3 o'clock is where you get that. Today, you get prospect chatter, plus a little bit of news on this show. The Nationals and Paul Toboni stealing the Pirates director of amateur scouting. Two pretty good drafts by the Pirates in a row. Does that matter or not? Eric's got a take. Plus, I promised you I would give you a Sandy Alcantara trade package that we didn't review on the last show, so we'll do it today. Eric Cole, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Obviously, a little bit sleepy. I was kind of in and out those last few innings, and once I saw the walk-off go over the fence, I'm pretty sure I immediately went to sleep, like just passed out. Beyond that, again, this is a fun topic for me because it's tricky, right? Because there's a clear path, but that also means like teams could be deciding that that's where they're going to spend their offseason energy. Yes. So is the path really clear? Do they really want to rush these guys up this year? But I think I came up with some names that make sense. I think maybe a couple will surprise you a little bit, but nothing crazy. And again, this isn't a ranking of the guys who are the most big league ready. The path has to be there for them to make it. And it's also the most talented, the guys who are going to be the best in the major leagues. It's a very specific niche of players, but I think we found some good players to talk about today.
Yeah, and again, this is what the ranking looks like on October 28th. We hope you revisit this as the offseason moves on so you can see, again, which teams maybe heard the podcast or maybe were well aware of what the path looked like and said, yeah, we can't get aligned with that. That's not how we want to open the season. What can we do to slow this prospects path down or maybe even find a place, another landing spot, an alternate path for them to take to a different franchise entirely while they upgrade the spot with a veteran option. We're going to get to the news in the back half, quick bites before we sign off, but let's go to the three top prospects here. And Eric, I will toss it to you again. I do not know who these players are. I do not know what teams they reside on. I do not know how clear their path is, but I'm about to find out. Let's go with the first name.
So it's tempting to go with majority or all pitchers here because honestly, you have 5 rotation spots. You have a bunch of bullpen spots. And if you have guys that can fit in those spots, there's more likely to be room for them. I tried my best not to do that. There is a pitcher on my list. We'll talk about him in a little bit. But the first name I'm going to talk about is the second category of player, which is the players that can play multiple positions, which kind of creates multiple paths for them. You know, if they're not shortstop, second base, third baseman. In this case, I'm talking about J.J. Weatherholt with the Cardinals. One very hot, already in AAA, has been mashing everywhere. There's a good argument to call him up outside of service time considerations this year. There's a good argument for it. But the Cardinals didn't go in that direction. This is also a team that is going through a roster. They're going to call it a reset, but they're having to rebuild. So I'll ask you this. Between Thomas Agassi, Brendan Donovan, and Nolan Arenado, are any of those 3 players guys you want in the lineup right now, going into 2026, more than J.J. Weatherholt? The answer is probably no.
No. My answer is no. I don't think Arenado is going to be there. I think they learned last year the path to trading him is more perilous than they thought. Maybe this is the year. It better be because we're running out of time on Nolan Arenado's baseball lifespan. But yeah, in my opinion, I wouldn't rather see any of those folks. And with the lockout looming in 2027, if you're going to start the clock on Weatherholt, do it now.
Yeah. And again, there's other things, like obviously Arenado's contract's a factor. They seem to really like Donovan, but my point being is that he can play second, short, or third. I don't know if he's probably best suited for second, but he could theoretically play all three of those positions. And when you have that kind of guy, he's one of those guys I would target, be like, okay, he's shown that the bat's ready. How can he get to the major leagues? If he has multiple ways to do that, that seems pretty straightforward to me. The next one is our arm to talk about. And that's Thomas White with the Marlins. We don't talk about him much here, but that fastball slider combination is legitimately spooky, very hard to square up. And if you're going to pick an organization that has the most opportunities to come up in terms of being able to get called up, the Marlins are up there. Now, their pitching is better than their offense, obviously, but this is a team that's like kind of sort of flirting with being pretty good. And if that's the case, and you have this guy who's already been pitching at AAA, put up really good numbers 2 years in a row now, I would be strongly like that fastball and slider from the left side. Now that he's kind of switched from throwing that curveball, going more slider, and the changeup kind of showed that he can get right-handed hitters out, I'd be tempted to give him a try. And again, they have a few arms that they want to keep in that rotation, but like there's not like 5 guys on that Marlins pitching staff who are like, I'm sorry, we have to give these guys a chance to pitch in the big leagues. Whereas you have Thomas White, who again pitched in AAA, really close, young, and he would make this team better. Now, they have a lot more work to do to kind of get truly in contention, but if you want to kind of get that process started, you want to give your most talented arms a chance, especially with that organization. And for me, that's White.
And I do think the Marlins are closer than a lot of people give them credit for, certainly than this podcast gives them credit for. The Baseball Insiders did not do a lot of Marlins discussion this year, and that they end their season by eliminating the New York Mets for all intents and purposes, taking a group photo in front of the dugout, inching closer to 500. They had a hot streak, 2 hot streaks that'll be forgotten this year, I think. What the Marlins did in midsummer to somehow climb back into the wild card race, and what the Twins did at the start of the season where they went on a 10, 11, 12 game winning streak. I forget the exact parameters. Like that, yeah, but in May, they were firmly in the mix for a postseason spot. And then by end of year, everyone was gone except Joe Ryan and Byron Buxton. So now the question is, do the Marlins feel that they have a sustainable model of contention at this moment in time that will lead to an open window for Peter Bendix and the crew that built the Rays? Or do they feel like they need to continually reload, chase the dragon, chase some dream that is still 2-3 years down the line? Are they going to be eternally 2 or 3 years away from being a genuine threat? Or do they feel like now is the time to jump into the fire? And so does White come up and does Sandy Alcantara go somewhere? Are they going to clear out veterans like Perez and Alcantara? Are they going to call up people like Thomas White? Does that reset the clock, or does that retain their current position? I have no idea what to make of the Marlins, but I like the pick.
Yeah, they're kind of a fun team to talk about because, again, they're kind of one of those in-between teams where if they kind of feel like they're just getting close to good enough, maybe you don't trade Alcantara and maybe like to run it back one last time, and then you bring up White and then you try to make a run at it. Again, it's tough to peg, but there's a lot of scenarios where you'd bring up White in the Marlins case. The last one is Carson Benj from the Mets. So obviously the corner spots are a little problematic on the Mets. Juan Soto not going anywhere. He might as well build an apartment out there.
I like what I saw from him. Yeah, I feel like Juan Soto can stick around next year.
Yeah. Brendan Nimmo, I could see a world where he would lose his job because his numbers have kind of decreased a little bit over the last couple of years. He has the kind of skill set that doesn't age overly well, and it's frankly kind of annoying to watch for a lot of fans. He ends up being a very productive player, but it's just kind of, it's a skill set that doesn't always work. And as you get older and you're not quite as fast, and people stop respecting you and you just start throwing pitches in the strike zone and make you deal with it, that could be a little problematic. But Tyrone Taylor is not scaring anyone in center field. He's a pretty good defender out there, but you're hitting like 230 out there. Not much upside at this point. 2 straight years he hasn't produced particularly well. And you have Benj, who is as good, if not better defender than Taylor is because of that arm of his. I mean, when you could throw 95, 96 off the mound, if you put that guy in center field, he's going to make some plays with his arm, and he moves around well. So I think that he would be a above average to plus defender in center field at minimum. Now, after that, kind of depends on how good you are reading balls off the bat and taking routes and all that other stuff. And that's a little bit trickier to kind of project. But for me, if the Mets' stated desire is to get better defensively while also while also not having to overinvest to do so. While not hurting their lineup. Promoting Benj strictly makes their lineup better than having Taylor in there. And again, he's a guy who could probably play center. Maybe he's better suited for a corner, but again, maybe you play him in center until Nimmo falls off the cliff, and then you move him over there and you find a center fielder that you like better out there. I like promoting him because he's kind of an all-around, like he provides defensive value, he's quick, and he hits for power. It's maybe he doesn't have the standout, he's not the best power hitter. He's not the speediest guy. He's not the best defender, but he can do all those things well. And that's kind of the guys that the Mets need. They've kind of really doubled down on some guy like Pete Alonso. He can hit the ball far. That is literally the only thing that is a tool that is big league ready with him. It's not the hit tool is often questionable, and he's a very bad defender at first base, but he can hit the ball hard. I think having guys with well-rounded skill sets, again, Francisco Lindor is kind of an extreme example where he can run, he can hit the ball hard, and he's a great shortstop. But having more of those guys who can do a lot of things really well would serve the Mets well. And with that very clear, we would like to upgrade center field option, and they have this guy who's a top 25 prospect sitting in their farm system, already AAA, that was kind of an easy pick for me.
Yeah, and they previously, I'm still not sure how the Mets spend money, right? They definitely don't spend it on pitching per se. They obviously Juan Soto, here are gobs, here are bags of cash. But center field, these speedsters, these fourth outfielders, they've brought in budget options like Tyrone Taylor, Bader, Jose Siri the past couple of years. That seems to be the David Stearns MO. So why not go even one level lower budge and call up a guy who's already in your system threatening? I'm glad there's a Met on this list, because they were decidedly unafraid to call up key prospects throughout the second half of last year as they slid from Tong to McLean to Sproat. They wouldn't stop. So bring on Carson Benj and bring him on opening day. This is one where I would say Thomas White, I don't think is getting blocked by a free agent acquisition. JJ Weatherholt, I don't think is getting blocked by a free agent acquisition. Just might get blocked by the Cardinals' own temerity. This one is the one I would say is most likely to be blocked, but it'll be sad because it'll be a guy who is of the Tyrone Taylor capability. It'll be like a $5 million platoon outfielder who would step in front of this potential oncoming train. So I love all three picks. I think this is the one most in danger, but also the one that most clearly lines up with the team's stated ethos. So I'm gonna bet on, I think the Marlins wuss out, and I think the Cardinals and Mets give you what you want.
Hey, I take 2 out of 3. Betting on prospects and team decisions is a recipe for disappointment. So if I get 2 out of 3, I'm going to call it a win for sure.
I would call it a win. Natural to call it a win. All right, those are our 3. Those are Eric's 3. If you've got any others, weigh into the comments. We are happy to talk about them. And let's keep track of how clogged these players' paths get as we get closer to opening day, closer to the rumor mill. We are excited to talk about prospects who will be on the chopping block, on the trade block, people who are sniffing around some of the names that you all love to watch get ranked and re-ranked. And now that their seasons are done, all we have are the stat sheets and our evaluations. So we appreciate everybody joining us. Of course, we're going to be talking about tons as we get closer to the heart of the offseason and the winter meetings. It's time for personnel shuffles, and that includes Paul Toboni and the Nationals, who are, again, we're taking Red Sox members of the Brain Trust, I think, because obviously he did great work in Boston. He's got a lot of familiarity there. That has led me to theorize about what a Red Sox Mackenzie Gore trade might look like, because he can make it painful. Do the Red Sox even want Mackenzie Gore? I don't know, but I bet he's calling them to see if they do want Mackenzie Gore, because he's got favorites in the Red Sox system. And one of his favorites from outside the Red Sox current system, a former Red Sox employee who went over to Pittsburgh and helped run 2 extremely fertile drafts in a row, the Pirates director of amateur scouting, will depart and become a Nationals assistant GM. Feels like a big deal for both organizations. The Pirates got their farm system ranking up to 9th by the end of the year, buoyed by 2 great drafts, led by, of course, Connor Griffin and Seth Hernandez. And those are also 2 where you say, okay, how much heavy lifting was done atop that draft? Aren't those just big names that fell into their laps? What did Justin Horowitz really have to do with those selections? And so we can debate the merits and how impactful he'll be and whether the pupils he's leaving in Pittsburgh learned under him. But Toboni has now poached somebody he worked with closely in Boston to lead his efforts. Is it exaggerating to call this kind of a killer for Pittsburgh after the Pirates struggled to get anything right, nailed the top of the last couple drafts? We're not sure about the depth pieces yet. And here goes the guy who made those tough calls.
Yeah, this is where it gets tough for me, because you're right. They picked Paul Skeens. They picked Connor Griffin, right? But for me, like, if you're picking at the top of the draft and you have Paul Skeens looking at you, I know that there was a debate at the time between Skeens and Cruz.
Dylan Cruz.
I just didn't think there was that much of a debate. I'm just like, Skeens is a generational talent. Dylan looks like he could be a pretty good player. I don't know what the debate necessarily was, but maybe it's just a safety thing for a lot of people. Maybe it was kind of a floor versus ceiling thing. Obviously, it worked out well. And in Griffin's case, again, we talked a little bit about this offline. Griffin was the consensus best prep player in that draft class, but where the Pirates were picking, there was just a lot of college names being picked ahead of him, and kind of got to the Pirates, and the Pirates were more willing to take that risk. Where I think scouting directors really make their money is in those day 2, day 3 picks. And when I look at the Pirate system, I don't see a ton of like day 2, day 3 talent that makes me go, wow, they found a diamond in the rough there. Now, is Horowitz a good evaluator of talent? I do think so. And I think that he will help the Nationals. But I don't think like the Nationals were necessarily super deficient in their high draft picks either, right? They need to get the day 2 and day 3 stuff right. And I don't necessarily know how much that changes things. There's the list of like true impact scouting directors might be 5 names long. And they're usually really good at like pitching, or they're really good at specific types of outfielders or specific types of hitters. They don't have like a wide range of skills involved in like their talent evaluation. For example, the Braves, they're really comfortable with how they evaluate pitchers, which is why they pick them highly. Guardians, kind of the same way. They have their molds. They're like, okay, we like these guys. But there's other teams that are really good at evaluating hitters. And then there's the Rays, who just seem to like, they're really good at evaluating the really young guys for some reason. And it's a specialization. I don't think I see necessarily specialization out of Horowitz. I just think he'll be a quality hire for a Nationals organization that needs just quality, smart people involved. Now, for the Pirates, the issue so much isn't losing Horowitz. It's that who would want to work there, right? And I like, are they really going to attract the top talent in terms of scouting and in terms of, evaluating draft picks and things like that to an organization that is famously kind of stinks at treating people well within their organization? That's where I think it could be a real problem for them, because they might have to hire some guy right out of school or something like that maybe has some really grand ideas, but isn't probably ready to run a big league scouting department yet. So that's where it could really hurt Pittsburgh. But ultimately, for me, I don't know if Horowitz is uniquely great, especially considering like the picks that were attributed to him. Like, I probably would have made 10 times out of 10 anyway.
Well, as Uncle Ted succinctly put it, Pirates will still blow. It's quite possible. Maybe the Nationals won't blow. Maybe the Pirates will unblow someday. But it is fun to, again, not sure we can confidently say the Pirates got much right. And I can't even say they dominated the last few drafts, because I don't know what the depth looks like. As you said, and all that pitching they built up a couple of years ago, Xander Muth, Levi Sterling, Hunter Barco, are these guys depth pieces? Are they A grade? Do they allow them to trade from a position to strengthen Mitch Keller, or are they merely filler? I'm not certain. One other Pirates focus I just have to mention, because we have talked on this show about Esmerlyn Valdez before, and we're doing our early fall league roundup. Okay, how much can we trust him at this juncture? Edward Florentino is still the main international signee who has climbed up Pirates prospect charts. But Valdez is earning Barry Bonds comparisons in the Arizona Fall League. Now, the sample size remains tiny. The Fall League remains devoid of the top prospects they used to have. It's still a showcase league, but not to the same extent. 8 homers and 29 at-bats and OPS over 2,000, 2053. He's continued this onslaught for a few more weeks. Is he, in fact, Barry Bonds? Can we pencil him into the 73 homers that he needs to tie the National League record in the all-time mark? But either way, do you trust him a little more now than you did 3 weeks ago, say, when we first talked about his early surge?
I certainly trust him more. Obviously, the Barry Bonds thing is more of us having some fun, but at the same time, I feel pretty good about the fact that he's going to hit in the big leagues. The only concern I have is like the hit tool was already was a question, and in the minor league system itself, in the season itself, like there was some swing and miss concerns and like some kind of approach stuff. I'd like to see him against some more advanced pitchers that have some better breaking stuff before I kind of jump fully on board. But I'm definitely more confident than I was beforehand. But ultimately, again, not quite Barry Bonds, but I love watching him doing what he's doing in the AFL for sure.
And it just won't stop. All right, we are about to sign off. We thank everyone for joining us, but I can't Matt Damon this. I can't be Jimmy Kimmel bumping Matt Damon off the podcast again. I got to give you my Sandy Alcantara trade package. We got to get it out of here because we got other trade packages to talk about in future weeks. finally, here was my pitch. I did this on the Yanks Go Yard podcast yesterday. Got a C+. So if you want to hear it get graded poorly, head on over to YGY. I got the Yankees getting Alcantara and Anthony Bender in a package. The swing and miss I struggle with. Bender, K per 9 went down this year, but I still like a dependable reliever, and I know the Yankees do too. For Carlos LaGrange, who is the highest profile guy I could feasibly top this package with. I know he might not be a starting pitcher. He is electric, so I gave them hot Yankees riser Dylan Lewis. Bonafide, I would say, fourth outfielder, major leaguer Jay Savina, closer to the bigs than most think, and Uncle Ted's favorite, TJ Rumfield, who is a lefty, can't help platoon Ben Rice in the bigs, so you might as well trade him somewhere where he may get a job. Future Garrett Cooper in Miami. What grade are you giving me on this?
I'll say a B. I think that it's fair. What I'm not sure is a team that a trade that either team would like to make, because you have Alcantara, who's like, his breaking stuff's a real problem, and more importantly, like, he's had 2 years in a row, not including his Tommy John where he missed the season. He's had 2 years in a row now where he's given up a lot of hard contact, and I don't necessarily see anything about his profile that he can improve a lot more. Spin rate, velocity, things like that. All that stuff was there. There might have been some minor command issues, but he was getting hit hard in 2023 too. Some of his ERAs numbers are a little bit spooky when you kind of think about, like, wow, he might have gotten a little lucky when he was pitching well. Whereas the Marlins, like, you have an up and coming team, you have your veteran that you like, one of the few guys you actually managed to lock up, and you're going to trade him away. Plus, you have Bender, who is a legitimate, very good pitch bullpen arm. Do you give him up for Carlos LaGrange? And if you're the Yankees, do you really want to give up Carlos LaGrange, who might just be better than Sandy Alcantara if you promoted him anyway? I think the Marlins might like the bats involved. I think the Yankees would be interested in a Sandy Alcantara trade, but I think that both teams would not be overly enthused with this trade unless it was unfair to their side, if that makes any sense.
It does. My grade keeps going up. I'll take a B instead of a C+. And the Yankees had a chance to trade for impact talent at the deadline. They promoted Cam Schlittler instead. Maybe they just promote Carlos LaGrange this year instead of worrying about that. We appreciate everybody joining us. We'll see you again noon Eastern time next Tuesday here on the Baseball Insiders Prospect Show.